It's quite easy to mistake being comforting for being loved. A person can mistake being a place people recover for being a place they truly meet you. A welcome mat is usually walked on, an open door is inviting. A light on the porch can be like an open sign. And sometimes a person can become like that too, without meaning to, without deciding it in any formal way. Just being a place where something in other people seems to loosen. There was a time when my home was always full, not loud, not chaotic, just occupied. People lingered, conversations stretched, silence didn't scare anyone. It felt good in a way that was hard to name, like being useful without trying. I didn't think of myself as someone people leaned on, but if I'm honest, I was a warm house in the winter. The door wasn't locked, the lights were low, nothing demanded much. So people came in and sat down. Some stayed by the fire, some fell asleep on the couch, some didn't even take their coats off, just stood there long enough to thaw. At first, I thought that meant I was doing something right. There's something intoxicating about being the place where tension dissolves. You don't have to impress anyone, you don't have to be interesting. You just have to stay warm. And warmth feels a lot like love if you don't ask where it's coming from. And maybe that's one of those things a person can feel before they fully understand it. How easy it is to confuse the easing of tension with something deeper. How quickly relief can borrow the shape of care. I learned early how to be alone, not in a dramatic way, more like learning how to walk at night without panicking. At first, you're alert, then your eyes adjust. Eventually, you realize you can move without rushing. And once your eyes adjust to one kind of darkness, they begin to adjust to other things too. That stayed with me. Because I didn't need the house to be full, I didn't notice when people were staying for the wrong reason. I thought they were there with me. I didn't realize some of them were just there for the warmth. There's a difference between company and shelter. You only notice it when the weather changes. And some differences are like that. You don't see them when everything is comfortable. You see them later when something shifts. When the room changes a little. When the same warmth doesn't move quite the same way through the room. For a long time, I confused quiet with depth. A calm room feels meaningful when you've lived in noise. And I had lived in noise. So when someone sat across from me, eyes steady, voice soft, saying little but staying close, it felt like recognition. Like we were seeing each other without words. Sometimes in those moments I felt myself come into focus. Thoughts landed cleanly, feelings organized themselves. It felt like discovery. And that part wasn't imagined. I really was discovering something. What I didn't see yet was that I could have discovered it anywhere the noise stopped. I just happened to be the one who brought the quiet with me. And sometimes when a person brings the quiet, other people don't always come for the person. Sometimes they come for the quiet, sometimes they come for what happens to them in its presence. I thought closeness was happening. Sometimes what was actually happening was relief. There's a kind of stillness that comes with ease, and there's a kind that comes from holding very still so nothing breaks. They look identical at first. Only one of them moves when the room shifts. Eventually, I started to notice a pattern. If I rearranged the furniture, emotionally smoothed things over, translated feelings, kept the fire going, the house stayed full. If I didn't, people grew restless. Some knocked louder. Some wandered into other rooms. Some left without saying goodbye. And that was interesting. Not in the dramatic sense. More in a way something becomes interesting. When you stop helping it hide. When you stop fixing it quickly enough for it to keep looking the same. I remember the first time I didn't restock the fire. I didn't announce it, didn't make it a point. I just sat down. The silence changed, not colder, different, like the house belonged to itself again. That's when I realized how many guests have been visiting the heat and not the host. There's nothing evil about wanting warmth. Everyone wants to feel okay somewhere, but there's a difference between visiting a place and needing it to survive the night. And I had been confusing the two. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. And some things are like that. Once they become visible, they do not really go back to being invisible. You can look away for a while. You can try to call them something else, but some part of you has already noticed. I started paying attention to what happened when I didn't carry the room, when I let awkwardness sit where it landed, when I didn't explain what something meant, when I didn't make sure everyone was comfortable. Some people stayed relaxed. They pulled their chairs closer on their own. They added wood to the fire. They moved around the house like it was a shared space. Others froze or tightened or tried to get me moving again. That wasn't personal. It was functional. The house had changed its rules. And when the rules change, what belongs and what only depended on the old arrangement do not feel the same for very long. The strange part was how empty it felt at first. Not lonely, unfurnished. Like realizing how much space there actually is when the furniture gets moved out. But slowly, the people who arrived after that felt different. They didn't rush in. They didn't comment on the warmth. They didn't look relieved. They just knocked. They simply arrived. And when they came inside, they stayed themselves. The house didn't need to be special anymore. It just needed to be real. And that can be a quieter kind of relief. Not the kind that rushes in, not the kind that collapses, just the kind that lets something settle without needing to call attention to itself. I stopped thinking of connection as something I provided. I started noticing whether it could stand on its own, like a bridge you don't have to hold up while people cross it. Now when someone comes close, I don't ask whether they admire the house. I notice something quieter. Do they know how to sit in a room without rearranging it? Do they stay when the fire burns low? The house is quieter now, but when it's full, no one is sleeping on the couch because they're afraid to go back outside. They're just visiting, and I'm still here. That's the difference. And maybe that's the part that no one tells you at first. You may not notice it consciously, although something inside of you may now unconsciously notice that when the fire burns lower, you begin to see differently. Not because you become colder, not because you stopped caring, not because you finally hardened, just because certain things can only be seen at certain temperatures. There are people who know how to sit in a room after the first comfort passes, after the immediate warmth, after the old reflex to smooth, to soften, to make it easy, to find a way out. And there are people who only knew how to find you by the heat you gave off. You don't have to accuse them. You don't have to judge it. You don't even have to name it. Sometimes it's enough to notice what happens when you stop leaning forward before anyone asks. When you stop filling the silence a second too early. When you let the room keep its natural shape now. Because a strange thing can happen then. What belongs doesn't always disappear. Sometimes it gets quieter first, or maybe a little deeper down in you. Sometimes it reveals itself without announcing anything. A person shifts in their chair but stays. They don't reach for the old version of you. They don't ask you to light every corner. They don't seem frightened by the parts of the room that are dimmer now. They just remain. And maybe that kind of remaining has always said more than all the relief in the world. Because relief has a certain look to it. It rushes in, it exhales loudly, it loosens fast, it loves what ended. But presence is different. Presence doesn't always sigh. It doesn't always praise the house. It doesn't always say how good it feels to be here, or that you're a breath of fresh air. You can just breathe. A simple breath that may or may not be noticed, and when it is noticed, it's relaxing in a different way. A way that says you are enough without trying to be something you think you need to be. But knowing, whatever you think you are more than that. More than a welcome mat. And maybe that is harder to recognize when you've spent a long time being appreciated for what makes you easier. There's a quieter way this starts to shift, a way you may not even notice. Not scanning for who needs you, not measuring who seems to enjoy you, not collecting evidence that anyone cares. Just noticing what happens when you take a breath, when you're no longer the one trying to make it happen. Just who remains themselves when I or you can do the same. Who knows how to sit beside a lower fire without asking where the old warmth was. Who adds wood to the fire without making a scene about it. Who adds warmth to your warmth instead of taking from it. Who doesn't confuse your openness with an invitation to enter any way they want. And maybe without trying too hard to learn this, you begin to feel the difference in your body before your mind can explain it. A little less reaching, a little less preparing, a little less of that quiet moment toward managing the atmosphere. And in that space, Something truer has room to appear. Not louder, not dramatic, just less mixed, less mistaken, as if the room itself has started telling the truth, and you're no longer listening for who arrives the quickest. You're listening for who knows how to stay when nothing is arranged for them. When the fire burns low, when the house is still a house, when you are still here. And that may be enough to notice for now.